My name is Löki Gale Tobin, and today we're going to be making a mulled wine jelly. To make mulled wine jelly, you're going to need a few ingredients. The first is a bottle of delicious red wine. Hopefully you've already taken a sip or two out of it. You will need 1 packet liquid pectin, 3 cups white sugar, 1/3 cup brown sugar, 4 half-pint jars, or 8 half-cup jars. You'll also need 3 tablespoons lemon juice and a packet of mulling spices. To make this jelly, we are going to have a 2-step process. The first, we're going to be preparing the jelly. The second is we're going to be processing the jelly. Now, many people may have a water bath canner at home. I do not. To make a homemade water bath canner, you have 2 options. You can either buy one of the insets that you would buy at Alaska Mill and Feed or Fred Meyer's, or in my case, I'm going to be using some bands to place on the bottom of the pot. Other suggestions include putting a towel or something at the very bottom so the glass isn't coming into direct contact with the heat. You want to start getting your water bath heated up because you have to sterilize the jars and also the lids. You want to make sure that you have an extra kettle of hot water going so that when you process your jars, you'll be able to have at least an inch of hot water covering them. This ensures a good seal and also makes sure that your jars aren't going to explode or pop later when you're leaving them on your shelf. So we have our 2 things of water going, and those are going to get nice and hot. So now we're going to start the process of making our mulled wine jelly. To start your jelly, we're going to boil 1.5 cups of wine in a non-reactive pot until it's reduced to a 1/2 cup, which is about 20 minutes. And you want to let that simmer and not boil, because if it boils, it's going to make a big mess. You can make your own spice mixture or you can use a pre-made one. I personally like to use my own, which includes cloves and allspice berries, cardamom, some black pepper berries, I think they're called, and a few cinnamon sticks. If I'm feeling extra spicy, I add a little bit of whole sliced ginger. So to sterilize your jars, you're going to use a jar lifter so that you don't touch the hot water with your hands, because that wouldn't be smart. And you're going to put the jar in and let it fill full of water and kind of get all in there. Place your jars either on a cooking rack or a clean kitchen towel. The point is you don't want them to get dirty again. Many people skip this step, but I like doing the initial rinse with the jars because it gives me some peace of mind that there's nothing really on there before I actually put them into the hot water to sterilize them for about 5 minutes. So that's the next step we're going to do. Remember, you don't want the glass jars touching directly to the heat, so put something on the bottom of your pan. If at any time your jars are not covered by water, you will have to reprocess. So our 1.5 cups of wine are reducing, and it should take about 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, we're going to check, and if it's reduced by half, we'll continue on with the rest of the recipe. While we're waiting for the wine to reduce by half, we're going to combine the next few ingredients. So the first is the rest of our wine into a very large, wide bottom, non-reactive pot. And that's a non-metal pot because wine is acidic and you don't want it eating away your cooking ware. We'll also add in our mixture of white and brown sugar. And we're going to turn that on to low heat and let the sugar dissolve. And we'll stir occasionally. So once your jars have processed for 5 minutes, you can remove them from the hot water bath and put them onto a clean cooking sheet or a clean kitchen towel. Emphasis on clean. After you process the jars, you want to process the bands because you also want them to be sterile. And your lids. And we're going to put them into the hot water bath and then turn it off. That way they'll remain clean and sterile when we're ready to actually process the cans. So now we're going to finish making our jelly. The second step in making the jelly is to measure out your wine reduction to see if it's now at a 1/2 cup. Perfect. We're going to continue to stir our remaining wine with our sugar to make sure that all the sugar is dissolved. I like to add the spice bundle at this point in time because it adds a little extra kick. Once your sugar has dissolved, you're ready to add the remaining ingredients. So there goes the lemon juice and our liquid pectin. Then we're going to return to H or medium high and bring to a rolling boil, stirring the entire time. And you're going to boil like this for 1 minute. You can tell if it's at a certain consistency or the consistency you want by just seeing whether the jelly runs off the spoon. If it takes a while to do so, it's definitely starting to gel. And it's dependent on what you prefer, is whether you boil it again for 1 minute, you add additional pectin or sugar, or you just say, this is where I want it to be. As you can see here, I think ours is pretty good. Now we're going to ladle it into our prepared jars. As with canning most jellies, you want to leave ½ an inch of headspace. Headspace is the difference between where the jelly ends and the top of the jar. Once you have the jars filled, you want to wipe down the rim with a damp paper towel. This again ensures that there's nothing in the way of sealing. Canning is a very tedious process, but come January, when you're opening up jars of delicious jam or caribou or salmon, you'll really come to appreciate this step-by-step minutia and detail. You'll be taking one lid and placing it on top of each jar. After you remove your lids and bands from the hot water, turn the pot back on. You want to seal your jars to finger tightness. Finger tightness means that you're securing the jar to the point where it's just tightened by your fingers, not any more securely. This will allow the excess air to escape. If you seal it too tight, the jar won't seal. Now your jars are ready to be processed in the hot water bath. For this recipe, you'll process them for 10 minutes. You'll start once the water returns to boiling after you've added the jars. If at any time it looks like the water will touch the lids, add hot water from your hot kettle. That's why you have it going. This will help you maintain your processing time. We're going to remove the jars from the hot water bath, but we're going to be very gentle because we don't want to move the jars around a lot until they seal. So here comes the really hard part. Don't touch the jars. You'll be very tempted to press the center to help it seal. This will not help it seal. This will actually produce a product that may not be safe to consume. Let them seal naturally, like that. What you will do at this point is you want to wait 24 hours to check the seal. Although they have pinged, you never really know. So you're going to let them sit here for 24 hours, and at the end of it, you can check by removing the band and checking to see if the lid is securely attached. If it doesn't pop right off, you're fine. Don't try to pry it off. But if it sits on there and it's snug, you should be ready to go. You can put them into your cupboard and keep them for about a year, or eat them faster. For more information on canning, visit the Cooperative Extension at UAF. Their website is phenomenal. Or you can also just Google canning, and there's a great website called pickyourown.org. And that will provide all sorts of information on what type of water bath canners to buy, what type of accessories you could potentially purchase, and even some very basic recipes on how to preserve your harvest.